What up, YouTube? This is Steven, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to talk about something that many people would consider controversial and possibly even almost at times indecent to talk about. And that is, does black male masculinity and sexuality make white and non-black people feel uncomfortable? Or should I say white and other non-black people feel uncomfortable? And the reason that I emphasize white is because I feel like whiteness needs to be, or white people, specifically white men, in this particular case, need to be emphasized because I think they play a big role in this. All right. Before I really get into my spiel, I kind of just want to present a simile for you guys, and make a comparison. I kind of view, kind of like black male masculinity and sexuality as sort of like fire, in regards to how other people view it, I should say. I kind of think other people view it as similar to the way they view fire. Let me explain. Fire, if you see something burning, you would be uncomfortable by it, right? It would make you a little uncomfortable, at least a little uncomfortable, possibly make you even a little frightened, a little scared, intimidated as well. But also, the fire is intriguing because if you see something burning, you're not going to take your eyes off of it, right? You're going to watch. You're going to keep watching. You're going to see what it burns, what it does. You're going to be frightened at the same time, very alert. And I think that's how white and other non-black people view black male sexuality, as something like as fire. It's something that, probably, many times makes them feel a little uncomfortable, but they're intrigued by it, and, people do want to harness, or people do harness the power of fire. And I think in some cases, people harness the power of black male masculinity and sexuality. All right. So I got that out the way. So let me get into this, let me get into this now. Let's go back to the slave days, right? I know, it's tough to go back to the slave days, but oftentimes when situations like this come up, we have to go back into the past in order to figure out why things are the way they are now, So back during slavery, of course, you would have white male slave owners who, purchased slaves, of course. And slaves were considered property back in those days. Black people were considered slaves and slaves were considered property back in those days. If you buy a piece of property, whether it be like a car or a house or even a piece of furniture, you usually inspect it, right? You usually look over it as much as you can. You do a thorough inspection of it, right? You wouldn't buy a piece of property, like say a car, without doing some type of inspection. So I think, and when white male slave owners were inspecting black men and just black folk in general, black men and black women, they looked at their, sexualized parts of their body, right? And the white slave owner saw basically, I'm not sure, it's because it's all on like a case by case basis, but he kind of like, especially when you're buying property consistently, but you and inspecting property to buy, he saw black male penis, right? And you know, he may or may not be able to measure up to that. Um, so it's like, okay, we have to kind of like definitely put a restriction on this. So I think that's part of where like the whole like taboo of like black men and white women came from. Like, yeah, it came from slavery and, you know, wanting to sort of maintain dominance, you know? So when it comes to black male slaves and white females, like those relationships were taboo. While, white men and black females, those relationships were, the norm, you know. Well, I guess I should say rapes because they weren't like a relationship like as you would to think of it like today. Like, oh, they're, dating and going out to restaurants. It's like, no, it was rape. And really, I found out fairly recently, like technically white women were, in some cases raping, um, black male slaves. Of course, it's not the same as like a man, raping a woman, but it's like, oh, if you don't sleep with me, I'll tell, my dad that you try to rape me. And then he'll get, lynched. He'll get hung, right? So the black male slave pretty much has to do what she says, or either way, like if he doesn't do what she say, he's getting hung. If he does what she says, then at least he won't get hung at that moment unless she goes and tells or whatever. So he's being forced into this relationship. And he may even have some curiosity about it because it is like forbidden fruit, you know? And fast forward to present, which I really want to talk about. There is sort of like, you know, like different types of fetishes that people have in regards to black male masculinity and sexuality. Like the Mandingo fetish, the thug fetish, the BBC fetish, the interracial cockle fetish, the like even like a wrestling domination fetish, like all these fetishes involving black men. And oftentimes when it comes to like adult entertainment, there is a space for entertainment and movies that involve these types of, fetishes and activities, sexual activities involving black men, Really, all these fetishes really sort of like center back to the idea of BBC. Ultimately, most of them, perhaps not directly when it comes to like the wrestling, the domination thing, but pretty much the majority of them seem to center back to like the idea of BBC, right? So you have to wonder, like, who is financing these movies? Think about it. These movies do sell. These movies are popular. Like people do watch these, adult entertainment movies that involve black males, and either in any aspect of adult entertainment, you seem to be able to find like something that involves black males, But again, who are the people financing this? Some people are going to say, oh, it's Jewish people. You know how particularly white folk. You know how white people love to blame everything on Jews, like all this stuff they blame it on Jewish people, pretty much. But I'm pretty sure there's at least some white men of non-Jewish origin, non-Judaic origin involved in this stuff. But again, it kind of circles back and goes back to my simile that I presented in the beginning of this video, which is black male sexuality and masculinity is like fire. White and non-black and other non-black people. It probably does make them uncomfortable in a way that maybe it makes men feel like, oh, they might not have, masculinity that can measure up to black male masculinity and sexuality. For, the women, it may make them feel uncomfortable because, it may be, like they see it as something that's maybe intimidating in a way, something that's foreign. And right here is kind of where the thug fetish comes in because, thugs, which oftentimes is a code word that seems to signify black male, among other things. It's like thugs are like criminalized, even if you just look like one and you're not really doing anything that is considered criminal or deviant behavior, like the establishment demonizes those people, aka the white establishment demonizes it, but at the same time that is promoted like through the media, like when it comes to like rap, like thugs are promoted through the media through rap. But furthermore, like there are fetishes that involve these men, like one that I heard of very recently. I was listening to a podcast and a lady had mentioned like thug hunters. I didn't know anything about this particular fetish. I don't really check for things like this. No offense, no homo. But it's like a adult film series that involves white males searching for, black thugs to engage in sexual activities with. And it's like, on one hand, these people, like thugs, are like being demonized, and white people are demonizing them, but at the same time, on the other hand, it's like, oh, kind of like behind the scenes, they want to use these males for sexual fetishes, or even like, oh, they want like a thug to like have sex with their wife, have sexual intercourse with their wife, and it's like, it's really weird because it's like a combination of being despised but also desired. But the desire is based on like a fetish, though. It's not based on anything that's like coming from like, a place of love. It's coming from a place of lust. Black males are being used more so as like kind of like pretty much a life-size adult novelty toy. A life-size sex toy. Pretty much in that aspect, if you think about it. Like, since you can't just go to the, adult novelty shop and get a, living, breathing black man, with BBC or a BBC, you kind of have to do it in a different way. Since, I'm like back in the day. Well, back in the day, you probably couldn't do that either, but still. But yeah, if you think about it, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, you're being like the spies and sexualized. But the sexualization partly comes from the criminalization and the villainization of black men. Like, oh, like he's a thug. So like, he's really tough and, you know, perhaps even animalistic, and like he almost is portrayed like, a beast, um, and that makes people feel, uncomfortable, but also a little intrigued, but, intrigued as well, as quiet as it's kept, and people are intrigued, um, another another situation, that comes up is, like the original Birth of a Nation movie and King Kong. Both of those movies had like themes of black male masculinity and sexuality in them, and they were portraying it in like a negative way. Birth of a Nation, it was like propaganda. It was like, hey, like we can't have these, black people free. Look what these black men are going to do to white women, and there's this guy dressed up as a black man in blackface, and he's chasing this white woman, trying to sexually assault her, and she's like, running, and then she jumps to her death. And then when it comes to King Kong, I feel like that's like, a subliminal message that is pretty much saying that, again, this is what happens when you let a black man into society. This is what he's going to do. And some people are probably going to say, oh no, it's not a black man. That's you're just assuming things. That is a bad assumption. But I think this is really what it meant. Like, I think this was part of what the people had in mind. Of course, they didn't use they used a giant gorilla. Black people are often compared to like gorillas, monkeys, etc. That has been used as a pejorative. There has been like pseudo-scientific research saying like black people are subhuman and similar to a gorilla, and things of that nature. And that also makes me think of the whole incident involving LeBron James and Gisele Bundchen. They had did a cover for Vogue some years ago, and they were both on the cover of the magazine. And people kind of likened it to like King Kong, the way that he looked. Which, he did have like an angry, menacing look on his face. However, Gisele Bundchen didn't really look like she was in fear of anything. She just looked like a combination of happy and awkward, really. I really think that Gisele need to be upset by that picture too, because they got her looking really weird in that picture. The picture on the inside is much better for the both of them, really. It looks like they're in much better sync with each other, But yeah, I think ultimately where I'm getting at with this video, because I know I've been, kind of all over the place in this video. I didn't mean to. But, ultimately back to the question, do you think that black male sexuality and masculinity, intimidates and makes, white men and other non-black people feel uncomfortable? And I think the answer is yes, it does. I think it really, I think that's a part of that's not the totality of racism, of course, but I do think that is an aspect of racism, though. You know? This is just my personal opinion. But I really think that it's true. I think that, back in, the slave days, I think that if white males could have stolen black male masculinity and sexuality and claimed it as their own, like they've done with much of a lot of things, I think that they would have done that. They would have stolen it from them and claimed it as their own if they could have done that. But, black male masculinity and sexuality is a birthright that can't be stolen. Thankfully, like black folks been stolen from enough. Like black folks got to have something. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's my personal opinion. And I know there probably going to be some folks getting offended in the comment section, like, oh, like, no one cares about you. Like, no, like, just acting the fool in the comment section because they possibly are, offended. But why? Why are you offended? If that is you, think about it. Are you offended because you think that people are making assumptions about you? Or are you offended that people are like making you think and you feel like, okay, this applies to me, Because even when it comes to like police interaction, I think like police are really aggressive when it comes to black men, really. More so than other groups of men, They will be aggressive, but I think even more so when it comes to black men, though, And I think black male masculinity has something to do with it. Because like, oh no, like, this dude gonna be a problem already, just based on how he looked, making that assumption, So it's like, come full force, guns blazing, right? That's part of probably why we having all these, police shootings of unarmed black men. These black men weren't even armed, and they're still, intimidated, scared, uncomfortable by these men, And part of the reason that I make this video is because this probably isn't going to be something that's going to be discussed in the mainstream media. I don't think they're going to be discussing something like a topic like this. I think this topic might be too much for mainstream media. But here, we can discuss this topic and be, a lot more candid about it here. Because think about it, like who's going to be on the topic discussion panel? If you have it on like a news network or something, like, white folks probably gonna just be like, they ain't in it, they ain't been it and they ain't in it, and black people probably will show up, but white folk won't, and other people probably won't either, I don't think men are gonna be coming out and just being candid, like, yeah, black men intimidate us, we're scared. Their masculinity and sexuality makes us feel inferior. It makes us feel like, we missed out on the genetic lottery. I don't think that's gonna happen on like, folks coming and saying that on the record. Maybe like in private conversation, maybe, perhaps online since you can be anonymous, but not like, on a national platform, Well, I think that's all I have to say for the time being. Thanks a lot for watching, you guys. Feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe. And feel free to give me a thumbs up. Your feedback and support are extremely appreciated and extremely valued. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.